Welcome to the latest edition of Leadership Actually. It's not love actually, it's leadership.
It is, definitely.
Welcome, Lisa Powney.
Thank you very much. I'm trying to get used to this. Welcome, Lee Rogers. I think I've got it right this time.
Thanks for remembering my name, it means a lot.
No, that's it, yeah, good.
So we've also got a guest today on a leadership guru expert, Cat Hakki. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you.
Good. Thank you for having me.
Great to meet you, Kat.
You too.
Really excited.
So over to you, Lisa. What are we going to talk about today?
Well, I think we're going to talk about empathy, aren't we, really, and leading in that way. And I guess what we like to talk about is kind of how we've got it wrong, where it's been messy, because it's really hard to be a leader out there. I mean, it probably always has been, but I think it's particularly now. It's really demanding. There's lots of fast pace, and there is talk about being a human leader and doing it with heart. But actually that's really difficult when you've got so much pressure and there's different demands all over. And I know from my own perspective, there's been times in my leadership career where I have wanted to be the hero in my own story. I thought it was good for my career, it was good for my ambition. And I've tried to be something that I'm not. I remember one boss said, well, if you're going to go anywhere, you've got to show everybody you've got to be more assertive. And I went on this mission to demonstrate how assertive I was, and I lost a lot of things. I lost my team, the team trust. I lost, and I did end up getting the role, but actually it just didn't fit right with me. There's lots of times where I've tried to say it's all about me and I've done this, and it it never sat right. But I felt that that's the way you moved on in business, and I don't believe that anymore. And I've learned some of those hard lessons along the way, and now see some of that in some of the leaders that I coach and be part of. But I can see the difference that it makes when you do it in a different way. What about you, Lee?
So I've a personal, perspective, very similar in terms of trying to be something I'm not, trying to fit in and assimilate around me what I think people want versus being really comfortable in my own skin to then create a leadership style that sits really well with me, that serves me and the people that I'm leading well. So I've definitely got that bit wrong in the past, and you learn from it, don't you? They're some of the most important lessons that you go through. I'm really pleased that I did, actually, because I think it makes me the leader that I am today. There's a leader called Jonathan Keeney who was at a previous organisation, and he used to say, I'm not the leader I was 5 years ago, nor am I the leader that I want to be in 5 years' time. And that really resonates with me, because I genuinely feel that it is that constant evolution. Equally though, I've seen lots of leaders that don't choose to be a leader, don't want to be a leader, even when they're in the position of leader. But they're very good technically, but then they've been through promotion or because it's just their next step, they've taken that route. But actually from a technical leader point of view, they couldn't be more ineffective if they tried, or it's not been their thing, and actually it's like this add on to their day job. So I'm curious around, well, how do we help leaders show up and lead the people that are in their influence?
Nice. Lots of nods there, Kat. Does any of that resonate? Have you experienced some of that, or do you feel it? Or
Absolutely. In fact, we were having this conversation only a few days ago. I kind of went into my first people leadership position 23, 24. You think you know it all. You don't. But you think you know it all. And it was all about me. I think you said earlier, the hero of my own story, and I was absolutely going to be the next, like Miranda Priestley. I was ready. But very quickly realised it is about the people around me, and my job was to do nothing than like the touch paper that someone had lit in me.
Nice.
And watch them go and help them achieve their full potential, whatever that was, whether that was a leadership position themselves or something completely out of the industry or workplace I was in. But very quickly realised that, and I think now I am the most authentic leader I've ever been, and that is still a journey. I'm still not there, not the finished article. But I'm a much happier leader in myself, and that, you know, kind of then makes your team much happier, doesn't it? So yeah, definitely resonates.
Lovely. And you said you are now your most authentic leader. What do you think have been in the milestones on that journey? If we had a plotted history of your leadership journey from then to now, what might that look like?
I think there are some good leaders and some bad leaders that I've learned the lessons from. I like that. I absolutely don't like that and will not be taking that into my own style. I think being really curious about who I am as a person, how do I lead myself, how do I look after myself, that has been hugely transformative in my leadership style, and turning up to work as a person, because I'm that before I'm anything else, and my team are people before they are the title that my organisation has given them.
Yes.
So that was probably the biggest turn. And then finding the people around you that help you continue to grow, that are on the same kind of journey, your tribe. I know we use that word a lot, but finding your tribe has just been the game changer.
Wow.
Without it turning into an echo chamber, and I think that's really important, because too much of the, you know, you can start to drink your own Kool-Aid a little bit, can't you?
I think that is a really important part, because, you know, we can have groupthink then, you know, sometimes we recruit the people that think like us, or we're going to say yes, and actually that can go against us as a leadership trait, you know, if we want to be forward. We might get the answers that we want in the short term, but we're not going to grow or develop. So we talked about, when we think about you, Kat, around the words empathy and ego. For some who might not be as familiar with those terms, how do you define those? What do they mean to you?
So for me, empathy is sitting with the person. You might not know the specific, you know, experience the specific scenario that they've been through, but you can recognise the feelings, you can recognise the hurt, the pain, the doubt, the happiness, whatever that emotion is. Ego for me is coming at something, whether that's leadership or something outside of work, right, in a real kind of self-centered, doing it for the kudos rather than what it gives to other people. I'm a massive Brené Brown fan, as you know, and we discuss quite a lot. And that whole thing about kind of ego leadership versus heart leadership, yeah, that's played a big part. You know, we were talking about milestones in my journey. That's played a big part in kind of shaping who I am as a leader, I think. Yeah.
And what does that look like on a day-to-day basis if you're a heart-based leader versus an ego-based leader?
I think the ego kind of driven is when you let the title get bigger than you.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter what that title is, doesn't matter whether it's a C-suite title, doesn't matter what it is. You could have the biggest accountability in terms of budget and people and team size and blah, blah, blah. I think it really becomes very self-serving and very dictatorial in style, actually, is my experience of kind of that ego leadership. And heart leadership is, we are all in the arena, we are all getting our ass kicked.
Oh, yeah.
Apologies, maybe that's but we are, right?
Yeah.
And whatever's going on in work, everyone's got something else going on outside of work. And it's just about understanding that we turn up as our whole selves, whether we like it or not. That thing that we try and quash and compartmentalize, it wheedles its way in. You know, it shows up in how we react or we respond. And it's just about recognising that in yourself and in other people, whether that's colleagues, peers, whoever.
I really love that. You know, we do bring other things to work, and I always think about relations. They're consultant and medical consultants, and when they're at that senior level, and I guess it's supposed to be at other levels, they have that candle that says, if there's anything that's going on outside work, you need to tell us. So there's a real rule with that, and because it could affect an operation, you know, it could have lives could be at risk.
Yeah.
And I think actually if we could have that kind of thinking in other environments, then it would bring a lot to work, wouldn't it? You know, it's how we deal with that as well. If somebody does bring that, how as a leader do you know, deal with that? You know, what sort of things make sure that it serves you rather than that's another thing that I've got to deal with. Or
would you know what? I think before you even get there has to be the psychological safety in your culture, in your team, in your peer group that allows people to say that. So you understand that reaction was because of whatever happened at home on the school run, not whatever's going on in the workplace, right? Or something really terrible is happening outside of work. So I think that is So important, that psychological safety. And then when it's there, it's just about holding the space with no judgment. I think one of my guiding values is kindness, and it is all about that. I will hold the space, whether that's 5 minutes, 50 minutes, whatever you need, and there's no judgment, because we're messy, we're human beings, and we keep saying that already, and we're only at 10 minutes in. We've said that so many times, but we're human beings, and that is as messy as it is beautiful. So yeah, I think just holding that space, but still holding people to account, right? People can't go around behaving poorly, not delivering, but it's really just going, well, what do you need? How do I help you? Rather than just assuming I'm a fixer. I will always go straight into fix-it mode, and I have to hold myself to account to go, okay, take a step back, let that person tell me what they need, and I'll kind of work with that.
I had a brilliant example of, well, I think it's brilliant.
We'll be the judge of that.
Did you say there was no judgment or anything then? I was reminded of that only this morning. So, in the simplest form, my daughter, what breakfast that she was going to have, right? And my wife simply said, well, you choose it, Ella, and you do it yourself. I absolutely was about to go and sort the cereal bowl, put the cereal in, get the milk, present it to her on the table, and its simplest form, and she was so happy with herself. And then it led to something else where she then, well, I'll get my clothes to go and get myself dressed for school. And it was just a reminder in that moment. So yes, it's parenting and we're talking about leadership, but I think there's parallels that says sometimes the best thing you can do is get out of the way, or you can ask the question. And it was my wife that did it, but I just observed in that moment about how the reaction and the interaction was different. And so Dan Pink's mastery, autonomy and purpose, it reminded me of that, because I always used Ella as an example. And I'll just tell this story quick. So Amanda had gone to London, I was left home parenting, and I let Ella eat a toast in the only way possible. So I put the food on the table, but she then proceeded to dip a toast in the milk. And I was like, oh my gosh, literally, if anyone saw this right now, I might, the child services might be on to me or something. But you know what, in my amazement, we got out of the house 10 minutes sooner, because she got to do it her way. Now, admittedly, I wouldn't encourage buttering milk necessarily, but it all went down the same kind of pipe, and I was kind of going, nothing happened. There was no risk at all, and it was messy, but it was also beautiful in the fact that she had full autonomy about what she chose to do.
And it's helped her kind of develop confidence in her own decision making, which is so important. And bringing it back to leadership, how many of us have had team members go, oh, what do you think about this and what do you think about that? And I try and take a step back and go, what do you think about it?
Yeah. Well, a simple analogy, but as a leader, but as a parent, there's so many times when I've gone, it's just having that, because I got to get out the door. And the leaders are doing the same thing. They go, well, it's just quicker if I do it myself.
Easier to tell than coach.
Yeah, absolutely. It takes time and a bit of space. But sometimes it doesn't.
Sometimes you get 10 minutes back and you don't.
But it does go, I think it does go back to the holding space. I think that's a really important reminder for people listening to this, that, and as you're saying, Lisa, how often do we rush or we're not scheduled because we've not factored it in the timetable, versus actually recognising in the moment from an emotional intelligence point of view maybe that this is the right time to have that 5-minute conversation. Or ask that question or that further question. I am messy and chaotic at times. We've already discussed that on this podcast.
We are.
but I think at times there's value in that, as well as structure, rigour. That's also clearly really important as well.
And you can plan for that, can't you? You can plan for the messy. You can make some space. You can do some of that. Kat, you talked about you have to have first level psychological safety. Easy for me to say. But it is one of those subjects that everybody's talking about. How do we create it? What's the right level? Do we have to have a perfectly safe environment, for anybody to speak up? What's your take on what it is and how do we do it? How do we create it as leaders?
For me, it's that space to be authentic and vulnerable. And that is a scary word, right? Particularly as a leader, when you kind of think that you have to be the one that has it together all the time, has to have the answers, sets the perfect example all the time. So for me, it's just that space to be who you are, unfiltered, on a good day and a bad day, and be honest about that, and again with no judgment, and someone else holding space for you where you need it. And in terms of creating it, it is not an overnight thing. No, not at all. But it's culture. And I think the challenge we've got at the moment is, maybe not just at the moment, but no one teaches you. As you become a leader, I think actually investment in training is, in my experience, is less and less. Yeah. So you talked about someone previously moving to a leadership role. They're not taught how to be a leader. And if they do get some training, leadership training, actually it's how to manage a KPI, how to performance manage against a policy. That's managing. Yes. That's not leading. So being taught to create a culture is really difficult. So let's face it, probably takes a little bit of self-discovery. Yeah. And as that leader, starting from scratch, you have to show that vulnerability yourself, and that is scary, right? You're putting yourself out there, not sure what reception you're going to get, not just to your team, but it could be to your peers, it could be to your own leader. So it's terrifying, to be honest, Lisa. Yeah, vulnerability, creating psychological safety is terrifying.
Yeah, it's a big subject. How have you tackled it? What do you do with your teams now, and maybe leaders that you talk to or coach? What kind of?
So I think for me personally, it started with finding my tribe, those people that I could be vulnerable with, that I created the psychological safety with, and then mirroring that within my teams. Yeah. And that's would probably be my advice to any new leader. Go and find the person that you can hold that space with before you try and do it to people that you don't necessarily kind of know on the same level. Yeah. But little and often. You don't have to share your life story and dump all this trauma on people and go, now you've heard all that about me, let me hear all of yours. It doesn't need to be big. I think just little acts of consistent openness and vulnerability. Got that wrong. Yeah. I've not done well this week, guys. Not turned up as my best self to that. Something you once said to me, how does that serve you as a person and a leader? I go, that didn't serve me very well at all. And being open about it and share it. It's always mentoring, really. You're going, this was my experience, I got it wrong, wouldn't recommend you do the same. Yeah. Talk about how you want to approach it differently. So consistency is probably my overarching message to all of that.
And you said, you learned from people who did it not so well and the people who did it well. What about those who did it well? What do you remember, what you took from them and defined you?
Kindness. Yeah. Warmth, openness, and a lack of fear. And I think this comes back to the ego-centric leadership, that there's a too large a swathe of leaders that are too scared that you're coming for their job. Yeah. Instead of creating you, helping you grow, turning you into your best self, and then whatever happens, they just want to hold that door closed because you might be coming for their job. Yeah. And so that fear, I think, just stops that trust and that psychological safety, and actually just leaves a bad taste in your mouth as a person being led by them.
And kindness is a really big value.
Huge.
But sometimes it is hard to see that in the world of work, isn't it? It looks and feels a little bit different. I love Mary Porter. She does the kindness economy, and wrote a whole book about how we can change things.
It's brilliant.
How do you consistently show up as a kind leader? What sort of things should we be seeing in the world of work that would make a real difference to you?
That's a good question. I think, again, just treating people like people. And I know I've said that a few times, but I think it's really important. Mm. I think clear is kind, another Brenéism, which I just can't get away from. We've all had to deliver hard bits of feedback or things, subjects that are not easy to talk about. But ultimately you are doing the right thing for that person, as uncomfortable it might be for you and them in that moment. You're doing the right thing, and as long as you're doing it from that place and not from a place of humiliation, wanting to put someone down, I think that's clear as kind is the thing I hold on to quite
Yeah, it's
a lot.
not about being nice to everybody all the time.
No, because some of that is about boundaries and saying no, and actually I'm not going to talk about that, or you can't speak to me like that, don't speak to that person like that. It's about those boundaries, and that's not always comfortable.
No, definitely
Not comfortable.
I've seen leaders who flip the other way. Sorry, Lee.
That's all right.
Flip the other way, and felt that they just had to be kind and nice all the time, and got themselves into the drama triangle, and created more of a victim in their people. So it's really important that those boundaries are in place, and that we, clear is kind, and also it gives people options. I love that if you give people sometimes news that isn't great or feedback that isn't great, but then they have an option to do something about it. If we don't, they'll never know, or they can't change it, or they can't make a decision about whether that's valid or not. So it's really important that we kind of have that mindset. So yeah, I love that.
I was just going to add, so we can talk about being whole. Where are some of the times where, and what advice would you give to people when they're going through a lot of stuff, right? And it's hard, and there's pressure, and the pace is relentless. How do people show up in that space?
It comes back to finding your people. Find the people that you can sit next to and go, ooh, it's heavy at the minute, isn't it? Like, it is. Life is heavy, this thing is heavy, because they'll often be the mirror that you need, that you can't quite see yourself, and they'll be the ones that are clear as kind to you. They're the ones that go, you are being too hard on yourself, or no, you need to change what you're doing here. I think from a leadership perspective, if I'm talking about the people that I am leading, it comes back to that, what do you need, and stop trying to be the instant fixer. Because I say again, I do go into fix it mode. I'm like, I'll do this for you, and I'll take this off your plate, and I'll go there, and I'll do that. But then, to your point, Lisa, I'm not giving them the option to do what they need to do to get through the thing that they're going through. But talking about it takes the shame away. We probably all know super high achievers that are quietly dealing with this burnout that they daren't talk about because there's some shame in it.
Yeah.
And that you're doing really well at work. You've got all the traditional markers to success: the nice car, the nice house, stable life, whatever. But inside we're screaming and going, I don't know what to do, I don't know how to get out of this. So asking for help is really difficult because of the shame around it. So finding the people that you can come and have a conversation with, whether that's a professional and you're paying for it, or a good group of friends or a good professional network, taking that shame out of it is huge. But we have to talk about it. Every opportunity we get, we have to talk about it to dispel that.
Yeah, I do. I agree with you. I think it's really important, and I think almost a variety of options that you've just spoke about resonates, because there's times when it is a personal relationship, it is a peer. You need different things at different times, I guess, particularly when the pressure's on, because what all the research says is when the pressure's on is you revert to type. So, as conscious as a leader as you want to be, actually what your MO is, you kind of go back into that lane, and therefore it is more difficult to see how you're showing up. Maybe. I talk about the secret sauce. With having a relationship with someone, we've got the secret sauce that they would tell you. They would go, either you've been a whopper, you need to think about A, B and C, or like even just pause, just rest, and we'll speak in a week. That's equally as valuable. The always on culture, the burnout culture, there's something around, where do we give space to leaders?
We don't. I don't think we do at the moment. I think my industry is no different in that it is going through constant change. And so you're looking out for the business, you're looking out for the people, but you're not looking out for yourself. I don't know about either of you, but I get to a Friday night, I probably have Friday night where I decompress and rot on the sofa, and then Saturday morning I'm already thinking about what's next. And if I'm doing that, my colleagues are doing that.
We never switch off though, do we?
No,
never switch
never.
off. Reports recently said the new word was the infinite workday. Microsoft teams have looked at our working patterns and we don't switch off, so that's becoming more prevalent. And I sometimes coaching men in particular. Actually, we'll talk about a work coaching scenario and often about performance or whatever it is, and then the real stuff comes out, and I might be often the first person they've ever spoken to, and they're probably at burnout already. You can see some of that stuff happening, because they are in an ego-led culture, where that is still driven from the top down.
It's really interesting. I think we've got the next generation of the workforce coming in that are much more human-led, a huge emphasis on human skills as opposed to the traditional business skills, KPIs, commercial, that kind of stuff, which are important, right? Can't get away from that. They're important. But the current generation of leaders isn't equipped to deal with this new generation coming into the workplace, because they look at things completely differently.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting what you said about kind of the male shame. It's shame. Let's label it for what it is. That's the reason they've never said to anyone, I'm burnt out, I'm struggling.
Yeah.
It's just not, just doesn't fly anymore, I don't think. Like, we have to be able to have these conversations. We have to create the space to go, it's okay to be a guy and to be burnt out and to not be having a good time, and to ask for help. That's really important.
Really
I'm really passionate about this subject in that when I think about performance, any performance indicator for me is around not what you do in the moment, but what you do over the longer term. So therefore, high performance is doing that consistently over a long period of time for me. It is that consistency. And in order to do that, you need to rest really well. Whichever facet that is. And often the analogy is used from the sporting world around, they spend maybe 10% performing and 90% rest or training. So it's different in the business world, where it'll be at least 90%, probably 99%, and 1% recovery, not to thrive, but to survive. There'll be lots of people listening to this going, blimey, I resonate with Kat on a Friday night, sort of, well, it gives so much that you're then no longer emotionally available to your family.
Yeah.
Because you've give your everything, or whatever that might be. I often think about, and I don't want to make gender, because I think it's about the individual, but individuals, some people are better at recognising what things they need to fuel themselves back up.
Yeah, definitely.
Whereas other people really struggle with that because they want to give all the time. So things for me around, like, might be playing golf, or it might be going to the gym. That's actually the active stuff, but helps me just decompress.
Oh yeah, rest doesn't mean like completely just stopping, doesn't it, and being a sloth for the weekend at all. It's understanding what fills you up, what fires you up and fills the cup. Sure,
but equally, actually, I get involved in the box series that I wouldn't necessarily normally watch, like with Mandan. It's the best thing ever, just to make me stop and not have a phone anywhere near me. In fact, she bought me a digital detox box for Father's Day one year. I need to use that more. That's what this is my call to action from this is to literally put the phone in the box and forget about it.
My friend says to me, why do you like spas? And I said, because I love a lie down.
Yeah.
Because when do you get to do lie down for no reason? You don't do that.
You don't.
But we wear it as a badge of honour, I think. That, when in the business world, I think if it says, how are you? What will you say? Well, I'm busy. Well, I'm super busy. I'm really, really busy. So I think that.
Or fine.
Or I'm fine.
Fine isn't an emotion.
No.
Do you mean you're fine?
Yeah, that's a nothing. Or we use busyness to avoid stuff. Like we don't, we get really, really busy because we don't want to deal with all that other stuff that's happening at home. So I think that's a real indicator, actually, that if people are so busy, there's probably something else going on that they don't want to unpick, or you could help them.
It's an avoidance, isn't it?
Avoidance. It's a great avoidance technique to get really, really busy.
I've got a friend and we used to be playing hide and seek. If you logged on late at night, it's because you're trying to avoid something somewhere, and you're playing hide and seek.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good indicator that something might not be adding up, or they haven't got the value outside work that they can give to themselves. So I think we hide in work, don't we?
We do
sometimes. So
we do.
But as leaders, we have that opportunity, that privilege to try and uncover that for people, and we can make a real difference to people's lives. If we are in an organisation that is ego-led, and maybe we are the new generations, or we just want things to change, how can we start? This is a really big question, Kat.
I'm ready.
Yeah. How can we start to shift that culture from like more of an organisational level? What sort of things can we start to signpost that means we're moving from ego to heart-led?
Oh, it's a big question. Wow.
I'm writing it down.
What can we do? Talking about it is the first. Don't shut up about it, actually. I'm not going to say talking. Don't shut up about it. Every opportunity you've got to have the conversation with someone within your team, outside of your team, within your function, outside of your function, do not shut up about it. Live it, model it.
Yeah.
That whole thing, you can't be what you can't see. If you can't see someone doing it, you're not going to be the first, are you? You're going to kind of... That's quite a scary place to be. Keep being vulnerable, keep being authentic, even when it's difficult. And be brave. Because it all takes bravery, right? To be a pioneer, to be the first one having those conversations, to find your people and work out who can you lean on. But I do think organisations have to, we do have to at some point come to the realisation that we can't just fix broken, burnt out people. We need to do something about the culture that's creating them. So that's probably the first thing, asking those questions of ourselves as leaders and each other.
And are the consequences, if we don't do it, what might happen?
We've got a burnt out workforce.
Yeah.
We've got burnt out leaders. We're not then delivering as organisations on that kind of business level, right? So you've got failing businesses. It doesn't even bear thinking about, actually, because I think we come back to that whole thing around burnt out, broken, just jaded, no morale. You're just a team of robots then. In fact, you're not even a team, you're a group of robots.
And talk about robots, I guess AI and technology is all being talked about, and that's going to overtake a lot of people's accountability and responsibility. So is this the place for empathy? Could this be the difference that we can make in
That's
that
a good question,
level?
isn't it? That's a really good question. It'll be interesting to see how technology and AI can almost give us the time to be human-centred.
Nice.
Because it takes it can write you a business plan, it can do the math, it can write the code. We've got no excuse then, as a leader or as anyone, whether you've got a leadership title or not, you've got no excuse. The busyness that you try and hide behind is taking care of it. So what are you going to do then as a leader if it's not to lead?
Yeah, so that's a really good opportunity. And maybe the reason why we need to move more to that space, because ego isn't going to have the same pledge out there, is it? It's not going to have the same level of influence.
No, because we can all do it. We can all write a good prompt for ChatGPT, can't we?
Yeah, it's a level playing field.
Exactly.
ChatGPT against another.
Yeah, exactly.
So empathy needs to be the difference.
Well, the roles shift, doesn't it, from creator to curator, to make sure what
That's a good tagline.
Yeah,
I like that.
It's probably stolen from my wife, I think. So let's give her the credit. But no, she said that the other day, actually. She asks of her staff and the people she leads to think of it in that guise, actually, because to leverage the benefits of it, and there's people that are concerned about it as well, and because it's a not fully known entity right now. But then isn't that the course of time in terms of the technological evolution, that something is from the mobile phone, right? We were talking about, this gives us more time or more connectivity. Actually, it's in lots of instances it's led to less.
Yeah, 100%.
Because we're less connected than we've probably ever been.
The irony.
Right? So I think that I genuinely feel that for all the benefits that we talk about, like what's the chaos that it causes, what's the things that it then creates extra workload to that you've got to then go and solve. So actually, what do we stop doing before we take anything new on so that we avoid burnout? What do we de-implement? Because they're the things I think that I get that wrong all of the time. I always want to do something new and more. I never think about what's not adding value, what's not serving me well right now, that I could stop or deprioritise.
Yeah, it's the kind of Marie Kondo, what do we get rid of thing, isn't it? You know, if it's not serving us anymore, let's move to the side, to your point, and make that space for the next thing that is more powerful.
But we're doing that in the course of technology. You know, I know in our world we talk about tech debt, that we've got a new shiny server, but we've still got this old server that we keep propped up.
Yeah.
But it costs us a lot to service and maintain that, and it's messy. Whereas this new shiny thing, and then we've said that 5 times on. So the more that builds up, and as humans we're the same.
Yeah.
You only have to look at my office to know that. All the wires and connectivity, and then the books and the stuff, and all the CDs and everything that you now go, oh, well, I just stream it. But it's all of that, and we do get complex. When do we declutter? How do we make it simple? As we're having these conversations, Lisa, I think one of the major themes that keeps cropping up is this is complex stuff.
Yeah.
It's hard for people to consume all the information, all the data, all the expectations. If you're listening to this right now, how can you make your life as a leader simpler?
Yeah. So I'm going to ask Kat. I think a lot of leaders, though, when we go in, sometimes they're not shown what does good look like. So there's one, you need to do this and you need to do the other, you need to do the other. So if we could look at, a working day for a leader, what might be different if they were leading from a heart-led way rather than an ego-led way? So I know everybody's day is different, but what kind of practices do you see that they could implement over a working day that would make their difference, or they could create some habits from?
So one thing I've talked about quite a lot with my team is managing your emotional energy.
Oh, okay.
So when in the day is it best to have a conversation with you?
Oh.
When are you best primed for deep work, where it's a do not disturb, head in kind of, and understanding your own emotional flow and how you can then use that to your benefit and other people's benefit, I think is really important, because we've all been in that trap where 8:30 rolls around and you open your inbox, which is someone else's to-do list, and by the time kind of 10:30 comes around, you're like, well, I've done everyone else's work, now I'll try and get onto mine, but this is happening and that's happening, and actually I've got a real dip before lunch, and we don't talk about that kind of stuff enough. It's seen as too floppy and not productive, and it's not business. What does that even mean? What business? What does that even mean? I think that is really, I'm preaching, but I'm trying to practice.
I like the shift, because we do normal, time management, but that's really old school now. But energy-based time management, where you really understand your own strengths and time clock.
Yeah.
I think could make a real difference. That for me is a really good shift of pattern from old school to let's look at working with the system rather than against the system.
I've got a note on my email signature, I can't remember what it says word for word, but I'm paraphrasing. It's something like, if you've received this out of working hours, that's because it works for me. You don't feel pressure to respond. And actually a couple of my team have now implemented that. And I am a little bit, if I'm online late at night and I see them, I do give them a little like, I'm watching you. They're like, I know, I just want to get this thing done. If it works for them, fine. If I saw them online 5 days a week till 9 o'clock, then we'd be having a different conversation. But actually, if you wanted to walk away at 3 o'clock, but you came back at 7, as I sometimes do, and go, oh, I've just blasted out 2 hours of work, and it was good, solid work, because that's when I had the energy to put into it and focus.
Yeah.
Actually, that's really powerful.
That's a good level. That is a good build, actually, because some people could go, oh, well, Kat, you just said why we're working late till, but actually you're working with your energy, which meant you could finish early. I think that is true flexible working. Some people, there's parents, as parents, sometimes it really serves to finish at 3 o'clock and then when they've gone to bed to do another hour and a half, because it takes that guilt away, so to be able to work within those rhythms is really important, rather than you don't want everybody working till late and seeing some of that. So I like that.
Energy management, love it.
Energy management, we take that one.
I don't think it's mine. I've definitely stolen it from somewhere. Not Mandy, but definitely somewhere.
Yeah, for sure. But we all do. I'm all about how do you make stuff, because people put it out there, how do you make it your own? So that it works for you, rather than remembering an exact model or theory. You know, take little bits from it and then show for yourself, and it might work. And if it works, brilliant. And if it doesn't, then learn, tweak and adapt it.
But being open and being curious to, okay, I'll give it a go. If it doesn't work, not lost anything, I'll try something else.
But that's a vulnerability you spoke about, right? Because then you go, you know what, guy, we're going to try this and it might not work. Or, I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
Imagine if someone asks you a question in a team meeting, then as the leader you go, I don't know.
I try and say
Let's
it quite
lean in.
a lot. I do try and say it quite... The cat of old would have blagged it. She'd have been like, right, what can I pull out? What can I pull out of the bag here?
Blagged it.
But I would just say, I don't know. Where do we find out? Who do we speak to? What do we do? How do we find out? Because it comes back to that, if they can't see me saying, I don't know, let's figure it out together, then my team aren't going to do that either. And they're going to feel the need to blag. People can see through you when they're blagging. Yeah, they know. So if they can see me blagging, I'm setting the example that go out to our customers and just blag it if you don't know the answer. The minute you think you don't have anything to learn, particularly from others, just game over. Yeah. Game over as a leader. I think it doesn't matter what your title is, what accountability you hold, the minute you think you've got nothing to learn from your team specifically, so if you think kind of top down, you don't always have to be learning from people more senior than you. Yeah, the minute you think you've got nothing to learn, it's game over. I learn as much as from my team as I hope they learn from me.
That is really great. It is really, really important.
But you're right, we're pitched against each other. You know, there are fewer jobs than when you are entry level, so you're automatically pitched together against each other in an interview process. You get the roles, and then it's what team's outperforming what team, and it's constant competition as opposed to we're all here for the end goal, which is whatever that organisation's mission and vision is.
Yeah.
And just to build on that, or I guess a counter up to that, I've heard it a few times, is like, well, how do you define success?
Yeah.
So is it the external piece that you measure success, so the KPI, the business metric, or is there something as a leader, and we said about self-awareness, you raised that from the start around, what does this mean to me from the outset? What would make me the most complete leader that I could be? You know, we're talking about wholeness, and you know, I shared with you last week, I had a real moment and said, I feel the most complete I've ever felt in my life. And I don't say that lightly, like that's like almost a big statement, and it's not about money or wealth or anything. It was a few things landed, it's what my whole purpose was around, and I would just love if people got almost that joy or that moment where they go, I've done it. And they come around very rarely, you know, there'll be lots of bumps, but to celebrate that, or define for yourself what success is like for you in that moment. I'm curious around that for you, or whether that resonates in any way.
It does resonate, and I think the reason that many people don't have that moment of wholeness or completeness is because they don't understand what their purpose or their why statement is, to use a Simon Sinek. We're not taught about that. No, you know, I think about careers kind of conversation at school, it was never what fills you up, what lights your fire. It was, well, these are your grades, and that means you can go and do this and that, and you're not going to be a doctor, so you know, set your expectations a little bit lower. So we need to have those conversations much earlier around, well, what does purpose and mission mean, and you know, because until you know that, how many people do we all know that, you know, want the promotion and the next one because it's the title that they're chasing, not what that means or how that fulfills a purpose, because they want the director, the C-suite, the whatever. I was doing some coaching with someone a long time ago, and they said, yeah, but I want this job. I said, well, why? Because then I want this job. Yeah, but why? Because then I want that one. I'm like, what are you going to do when you get there? What do you mean? Well, there won't be another title once you get there, so what then?
Yeah.
Because if you don't know why you're doing it, it's empty and it's hollow, and you don't feel successful because the titles come with a package that allows you to buy the car, buy the house, have the holidays, but it's very superficial.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what I mean about a wholeness piece. That's important, because you go, and I'm all for setting goals and achieving goals. I'm equally curious around, so what? What does it matter when you get there? And for me, that was a moment last week going, like when you wear your own badge that's really deep trenched, about the legacy of my mum, I was kind of like, wow, like she would be proud of me right now. And I gave myself permission to say the words of I'm proud of myself. And I don't think I've ever done that in my life.
No, I don't think people do they? I think that's a big thing that leaders need to bring out in people, because when do we stop and say, what are you proud of? What are you proud of? When was that moment? I don't think we talk about that.
Or even celebrate.
No.
Like we work, but we work enormously hard to achieve. How regularly do we celebrate in a meaningful way the stuff that we've gone and achieved?
We don't. We don't have time, do we?
No.
Well, we talked about it before, we're constantly on, there's constantly the next thing, we never stop and go, oh, actually we did quite a good job there, minimal collateral damage. Brilliant, I did a good job. We don't. Or do we celebrate the growth in ourselves? As you were telling that story, I thought about someone on my team, I won't share names, but they won an award, and that was presented to them by the CEO. And they called me afterwards and they said my voice was shaking, but I said, yeah, and I'm really good at my job.
That's amazing.
I said, you're brilliant at your job. I'm glad you said it out loud, and I'm glad you said it to a senior leader, right? Because just being able to say that for that person was incredible, and one of the proudest moments of my entire 16, 17 years of leadership.
Oh, Kat, that's brilliant. And you've allowed that to happen, that they have the space. Being safe can say the good things as well as stuff. That's very vulnerable for some people, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
What are you most proud of in your leadership journey, Lisa?
Turning the tables now.
I'm turning on me. I'm most proud of when I was in my banking world. There's lots of things since, but I guess I took on a team in an area that wasn't mine. Like I wanted a new team, and they said to me at the time, well, we've got this new team coming up and it's in process improvement and you'll have to do Six Sigma, and I'd never ever, that wasn't my bag, but I took it on, and I took a brand new team, and I didn't get the stuff, so I couldn't teach them how to do process improvement. We had lots of training and they loved it, but I never got it. And I just did what I was good at, which was, the stakeholder management and talking forward, on behalf of promoting the team and building them up and shaping the team. And I did it. To have a privilege of having a team that's brand new, that's never had anyone before, was like, I've never had it since, actually, and it was the most remarkable thing, because I could put all my marks on. I did it in mad ways. We'd have lots of meetings on beanbags, and because I could, and I took them to Alton Towers, and against the rules, and did all that kind of stuff. And we ended up winning Team of the Year, in an area that wasn't my expertise. And I think it was real proof that knowledge isn't necessarily power. Yeah. It's the way that you involve your team and grow them and shape them. And they still talk to me today, and I'm really proud of that. They do great things, and they're still brilliant in that world. But yeah, it was a real demonstration for myself as well, that you can put everything into team and be the leader, and you can achieve great things. So not about me, but that was good. Thanks, Lee. Thanks.
I noticed you went, oh, not about me. You see, there's a moment there, isn't it? Like, I'll tell my story, but we'll get off it quickly.
Why am I talking about that?
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me share that. Kat, I'm going to bring you back to a bit of the cynic stuff when we're going in, because we get a lot of this challenge that says, well, that's really nice, to be more empathy and be more heart-led and more human. And I can see it's the right thing to do for the world, but what's the performance element? What's the return on investment? Why should we do this from a business point of view? What might you say to those leaders?
The research shows that attrition is lower, So even there, just from a pound signs point of view, you're already doing better.
Yeah.
So attrition is lower, your team is high performing, so generally that means bringing more pound signs in some way, shape or form. It's crude, but it's the truth of the matter. So even if you're just looking at it from that perspective, it's a no-brainer. But then that team tends to be more collaborative. So not only are they kind of performing here, but they're helping this team over here to perform and this team over here to perform. And then it comes back to what I was saying right at the top of the conversation around just lighting the touch paper. They start to light up the teams around them, and then that team's attrition decreases and their performance increases, and so on and so forth. So even just at that very basic level, I think it's a no-brainer. But also it becomes entrenched in your culture, so then you start to become a more attractive workplace, so you attract the talent.
Yes.
So again, probably comes down to pounds and pence, but you're attracting the talent, you are attracting the workforce and the leaders of the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I love talking to you. I can see you ooze empathy and kindness. Actually, such a warm, lovely interview. So it's really, really lovely to meet you, Kat.
You too.
Thank you so much for the insight. Thank you, Lee.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Kat. Again, just such powerful conversations, and this isn't to tell you what to do or how to be as a leader. This is hopefully thought-provoking to give you some ideas and some reflection. Where are you at in your journey right now? Are you kind to yourself when you're not maybe showing up as your whole self because there's a million other things going on in your life? Or do you beat yourself up and have the inner critic that's way louder than anybody else? I hope you've got something from today, and we look forward to you listening next time.
Thank you very much. Thanks ever so much, Kat.